Gonna try to squeeze in a week one recap video here before I get started for work. It's Monday, week one. The long week one has just ended, and we have numbers updated in the spreadsheet as of this morning, so the whole week one stats are in. So let's take a look. Who's at number one here? Oh, it's me. No, I had a pretty good week. We'll look at the VTL numbers here in a second as well. This is Fantrax standings, so it has nothing to do with your actual how good did you do. It's just a matter of how many wins did you get over your opponent. So I started out 12-4, top spot for now. Nate right behind me. JW, Casey, and Maffey are tied for 4th. Bo at 6th. So F the haters, Bo says to us all. French, Jeremiah, and Brad are tied. Alex, Frank, and Corey technically in last to start the season. Let's look at the VTL numbers. So number one, another F the haters moment. Maffey has the number one VTL in the league, and it was both sides of the ball. There's no fluke here. Pitching was 60%, which is always kind of what I consider the, wow, that's a good week. Really good week. And then 78% pitching. Excuse me, I think I said pitching for the other one. 60% batting, 78% pitching. You can see them right here. That's a total of 69.6% total for the VTL. Best of the young season. Right behind him was Nate, who was a lot more balanced. Actually, not really. Not really. It was pretty similar profile, actually. So 73% batting, 61% pitching. Pretty close. I don't know why I said that. I was more balanced. Didn't quite have the upper 70s number like these guys had, a 78 and a 73. I was 65 and 67. Still extremely good week, of course. All three of us, you can see, are separated a little bit by VTL over the rest of the group. And it was a pretty symmetrical distribution, if you will. Frank, Jeremiah, and JW all 55 to 53, separated by literally less than 2%. They did it in very different ways, or at least Jeremiah zigged where Frank and JW zagged. So Frank and JW leaned on their pitching, which is not what I thought I'd be saying about JW's team after week one. 61% pitching is good for a tie for third best in a staff that featured 0 keepers as a starter in the long week, where you just assume quality will play out more because there's a bigger sample size. So maybe JW's not screwed with his pitching. Maybe he'll be just fine. The offense will surely wake up. I would say also that the pitching will surely go back to sleep or whatever, right? So we'll see on that. I think that's the opposite of what I expected to see, but nonetheless, JW with a reasonable VTL for week one and a narrow win in the Fantrax standings, I think, over Alex. Frank did the same kind of thing, 59% pitching, 51% batting, a little more closer to the middle on both fronts. Jeremiah with 82% batting, which is absurd. And I mean, the home runs, for example, I think they were 7 higher than second place. I mean, that's a problem. However, the worst pitching in the league by VTL, also a problem. If your batting is a little more dominant than your pitching is terrible, you come out with a 54% VTL. Not really sure what that's going to look like for him long term. Surely over the course of the season he'll be able to pick up a couple guys that add value. The pitching can't stay at 27%. That's worse than any team in history over the course of a season, right? So it's not going to stay that low. And on the weeks where Jeremiah, my apologies, on the weeks where Jeremiah can scrape together 45%, 50% pitching, he's probably going to win 10-6 or more because that offense is loaded. Casey had the best week of the non-playoff teams, if you want to look at it now, by VTL. 44%. Hard to say which of these profiles you would choose. I'm almost inclined to say French because 51% is above average. And then pitching, he has a good staff. 28%. That's just not realistic. That's going to come up. When you're KC and you're 43 and 44, neither of those sides are good enough. So obviously you hope for improvement. It's sometimes might be easier to look at one group, one side of the ball, and say, look, I have 50% here. I just need to shore up this one area. But none of these starts were particularly good. Casey, French, Alex, Bo, Corey, Brad, all wishing they could have a do-over for week 1. Really was surprised to see how much Brad struggled. And Corey was off to a really good start, to the point where I thought I was going to get beat pretty good. Ended up I had a really good end to the week, and Corey had a really bad end to the week. Not too worried about Corey being a 35% VTL team, or Brad really. I guess Bo, got 6th place in the standings despite the 37% VTL. Little luck there. And in fact, now we've looked at all this, let's look at the luck percentages. So obviously it's only 1 week of data. You should be able to extrapolate how good your opponent did. But Frank, for example, faced a really good team. So did Jeremiah. So did Corey. And so harder to scrape across wins in your Fantrax standings when you're playing a team that just performs really well. And likewise, Justin, French, Bo, JW, Casey, all got teams that did not do very well. So luck will obviously change a little more as we get into the season. Here's a look at kind of what I'm calling the power rankings right now, as well as the updated schedule for next week. Nate, followed by me. We had 2 pretty good weeks. This is the tier I think I'm calling the preseason contenders who looked like contenders for this week's write-up, which is not complete. Won't be complete for a little bit, most likely. Bumping all the way up from the bottom tier to right at the top of the 2nd tier is Maffey. Calling the 2nd tier VTL says these are playoff teams, because I really have nothing else to go on. It's just 1 week, and preseason standings were just sort of BS. So I'm comfortable with a really huge jump for Maffey, because that team has so much untapped potential. And I mean, if you look at the schedule, French, Bo, and Brad each struggled week 1. Maffey's certainly likely to finish those 4 games in the top half of the league, I would say, at least based on what we saw week 1. That was an insane performance. Frank, right around where he was, I think. Jeremiah, JW, right around where they were. Alex technically slips down. I separated the tiers basically like the 6 playoff teams and then the bottom team. So this tier just being called rough week 1s, 20 weeks to go. I'm not really sure what to say about any team after just 1 week of small sample size, but I think these teams obviously shouldn't be packing it up. We got a lot of season left. Week 1, prone to some big outliers. If you look back 15 weeks later, it's not likely that our standings are going to mirror this exactly. So yeah, here are our schedules for the next 3 weeks. I'm not going to go over them, but if you want to look, here they are. And I will do a write-up later. Probably not today, but you can. I'm kind of almost hoping to stagger them a little bit so that there's exciting content available all the time. I don't know. We'll see. I'll get the write-up in some point before the end of Wednesday, and excited to move on to week 2. Transactions are slapped back down to 5. No more 15 transactions. Sorry, French. I think that's it. I guess I have not looked at this at all. I could go over here and look at the chart. These numbers indicate what percentile you're finishing in the grand scheme of things for our entire league's history. I really need to do some cleaning up of this because some of our stats changed, and you can see this high blue number indicates like an extremely high percentage. Well, that's because we had way more games than normal. I always go back and prorate the numbers based on the number of days we had. So we really can't trust any of this. Like, you're seeing some insane VTL numbers. It's not going to be that high once these are all adjusted back down. So let's not even go there. So season 8 underway, and excited to see what happens in week 2. That's all.